for the next couple of weeks to shape some of the early implementation funding. These are for kind of shovel-ready, shovel-worthy early projects. So surfacing gear, really heavy lift by the EDD Workforce Services team. They've done a fantastic job in partnership with OPR and GoBiz. Another big priority, as we've been talking about for the last year, is the Healthcare Workforce Initiative, funded in last year's budget at $1.4 billion. The funding is moving forward to get out to the community, which is really urgent for lots and lots of reasons. The guidelines for the ETP healthcare workforce funding were released this week. I would encourage you to look at them and think about employer partners who could really benefit from that training, who otherwise might not be eligible. The solicitation for an intermediary for the Emergency Medical Services Corps is in process and hopefully should be released in the next few weeks. There will be some early funding decisions I'm going to be optimistic about for the HRTP healthcare projects, and healthcare for HRTP is very much in formation now. Our partners at CHHS at HCI have a RFI out for certified nursing assistant training. Those dollars were part of the prior year budget, but we're really looking at them as part of the whole larger initiative. There's been a lot of work done and much more to do for the $130 million in the healthcare initiative for English language learners. These, as you remember, are Prop 98 dollars that go through the adult ed system. We were able to raise some private philanthropic funding to bring in the National Skills Coalition to facilitate a working group so that those dollars go out in a way that spurs innovation, spurs access for English language learner, and of course spurs really powerful outcomes, looking at the increased adoption of the integrated employment and training model in the state for healthcare. Hopefully a solicitation or an application for funding should be ready to go out after the first of the year. And I'm also really pleased to announce that our appointee for the Assistant Secretary for Healthcare Workforce has been announced by the governor, and a colleague many of you may know from the Bay Area, Jessica Pitt, will join the labor agency to be sworn in on December 5th. John, I see you have a question. I'm happy to pause and respond.
Thanks, Abby. I was wondering, so for the English language learner, it's Prop 98 dollars, so it's going to be like CAI, where only the community colleges or the adult eds can apply for those funds? Or
they will, that's what we're working out, John. They will have to be the primary applicants, but want to encourage very broad-based partnerships.
Thank you.
Yeah. And also, really with Workforce Services branch in the lead, we've been working on the 15% that we owe at discretionary dollars. And unlike, I think, the ways that other departments, of course, HRTP, ETP, increasingly apprenticeship standards have a sector focus for funding priorities. The 15% dollars are really have a population focus. There's a solicitation out now you should have seen for the Equity Target Population Fund, and this really targets funding for vets, for people with disabilities, for youth, for other groups who have historically been left behind. And the solicitation is really based on a theory of change that cohort-based training with robust supports, close and selective employer partnerships really can move people into good jobs. So we're really looking for some strong, innovative programs. over the next few weeks, there will be another funding release coming out targeting people living with homelessness or at risk of homelessness. And this funding will focus on employment, social enterprise, and really target the support services and transition support to help people retain their jobs in social enterprises and transition to other training, apprenticeship, or competitive jobs. So homelessness and addressing the needs of people experiencing homelessness is really an emerging population priority. We have also, when I say we, I mean those of us at the labor agency, really all of us have been working with stakeholders in labor, steelworkers, climate justice coalition on planning for the 40 million that was approved in last year's budget for oil and gas worker, displaced oil and gas worker transition. We have a couple of students from the Harvard Kennedy School who are going to conduct research as part of their, the acronym is the PAE project, really kind of identifying employment trends, projected layoffs, likely transitions that can keep wages relatively stable, and make some recommendations for funding. And I think anticipating a solicitation to go out for those probably end of first quarter or early April 2023. And then the last thing I'll talk about is lots of exciting activity on the apprenticeship front. As you hopefully should have seen, the Apprenticeship Innovation Fund framework is out for public comment. This was a big win in last year's budget and kind of establishes a source of funding we hope will be ongoing for the non-traditional apprenticeships, where we hope to see expansion. What it also does is, and I think we've talked about this here, and it is a very profound change, increases the rate for related and the RSA dollars, related and supplemental instruction, to put them at a par with reimbursements for other community college courses, which is a really important message. So that is out, and a few of us have been working with private philanthropy, with partners in state education agencies, some of the ecosystem of education research and consultation groups, to put together a working table that should commence its work in January to design a system for teacher apprenticeships, which will really create and solidify apprenticeship as a pipeline to teacher credentialing, really, to increase the pool of teachers, increase the pool of teachers from communities of color, and to have more teachers who look like the students they will teach, and provide pathways into teacher credentialing for people who cannot afford to take time off and not be paid for that training. And the other big item, I'm going to defer to Tim. I see a couple of questions I'm happy to answer before you may want to pick up, Tim, but lots of activity, kind of anticipating incredible opportunities with the federal infrastructure bill for procurement standards, to create quality jobs, and to really increase training and build pipelines into those jobs, again, for communities who have been left behind. So let me pause. Joseph, I see you have a question. Happy to answer others. And then Tim, you may want to pick up on the infrastructure piece. Carol, you have a real hand. How about Joseph and then Carol?
Yeah. First, I just wanted to say that was a lot of exciting information that you mentioned. Is there any way, and I was looking through the document, that we could get more information on what you mentioned about the homelessness, and then also the teacher apprenticeship pipeline building? Is there some written information on that?
So the homeless solicitation should be going out soon. So there's nothing written at that time, and nothing official on teacher apprenticeship. I've got a little blurb we've been using just to talk about people, just for people who are going to be on the working group. Happy to have an offline conversation, if you'd like to fill you in more though, Joseph. Okay. Carol, you had questions?
Yeah, I wanted to get a little bit more information on the Worker Oil and Gas Transition Fund and the role of those Harvard students, and just let you know it, Abby, it might be worth an offline conversation because
Great.
we're producing a couple studies. They're done, but not public yet, but
Oh, that's great.
I don't, yeah, one, an oil scenario, two, a worker survey of what
Right.
happened to Laidhoff. So I feel like we should have a offline on this.
Yeah. And just so you know, the work of the Harvard students is still in formation.
Yeah,
And
so we don't want
yeah,
them to repeat what we've done.
yeah, absolutely. Just really want them to build on what you've done, what other groups have done, and just support us and shaping the dollars and dealing with, when we've talked with stakeholders about this, I think what is always going to be a difficult call, 40 million sounds like a lot. It's not that much. And the trade-offs between, more dollars for fewer workers or spreading the dollars more thinly. So I think those will be some of the choices. But I just made myself a note to reach out, Carol, so we can talk more.
Okay, wonderful. Thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
And Carol, that study you're talking about on the workforce there is the one funded through the state workforce sports high road training partnerships. And that study's not quite ready for release. Right.
Right. But I think we could, tell you about it and private, right.
And is the workers survey the one for the marathon workers?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess we've seen some early
Yeah, right.
versions of that.
And then there's another one sort of on scenarios of what's actually happening to the refinery in California.
Great.
So.
Yeah, I will reach out and then would like to connect you with Jake and Bailey.
Okay, good. Because I'm also on the LA Just Transition Task Force, and we're all seeing a need for a little bit more statewide coordination in creating with Kern. So, okay, great.
Thank you for those questions. Anybody else have anything for Abby before we switch it over to Tim? Okay, thank you so much, Abby. Tim is going to share with us his exciting visit to the White House.
Yay! I'll try to be brief, Mr. Chair. First, it's to respond to Abby's point about working in Sacramento. We've had a lot of really great partnership with CalSTA, our transportation agency, also Caltrans, that's a department inside there, as many of you know, Department of General Services, but also the Resources Agency, the Energy Commission, and the CPUC, as Carol well knows, on really discussing kind of procurement and contracting standards, because our intention is to put standards and money when it goes out so we can kind of queue it up, create the conditions for building high road partnerships on the ground to meet kind of the equity, well, not kind of, the equity goals of the state. So really combining climate and those investments and then getting at equity through program work on the workforce side. This was really great that we did this advanced work because now the bipartisan infrastructure laws, all you know well, I'm sure by now, is a huge investment in the country's infrastructure and California's infrastructure. It's going to create lots and lots of jobs. To the president's thing, there was a infrastructure talent pipeline challenge event that was last week on Wednesday, and it really highlighted labor and business and community-based organizations and state commitments to implementing the bipartisan infrastructure bill, and also important programs. In terms of skilled workforce, what was really highlighted there on the training side is a huge focus on unions and access to union jobs. Most of those dollars are coming through to invest in transportation infrastructure, not solely, there's broadband, there's other things, but transportation infrastructure. And most of those, as Carol's been really clear about for years, when you invest in infrastructure in California, this is union jobs and traditional trades. And the opportunity is to build access to those, and working really closely with Jeremy Smith on our high road construction crews work and the state building trades to build that out and expand it and make it just incredibly robust and transparent. Thanks to Abby, we got introduced to Jenny Weisbord from the Family and Workers Fund. It's a funding collaborative. Jenny reached out to us and we said, hey, we're doing this great work in California with the Anti-Recidivism Coalition, of course, Sam Lewis. We work really closely with the North American Building Trades Unions and the State Building Construction Trades Council. She came back with an invitation for Curtis and me and Sam Lewis to come to Washington and attend the president's event. So we did. While out there, we also got it into the White House's fact sheet on there, along with Irvine Foundation, because we've been doing work with Irvine and some other foundations in California to co-invest in higher ed training partnerships, and with Lumina Foundation and with Jeremy to co-invest in high road construction careers. So that was kind of highlighted in the fact sheet that came out after the White House event. Also, Curtis and I met with several folks in Washington on high road training partnerships and high road construction careers and the BIL. And one thing that really stood out for us is that while we haven't been in Washington in a long time, everybody knows about HRTP and HRCC. It was really cool. See what we're doing in California as a model for the country, and what the White House thinks about, and Department of Transportation and Department of Energy and Department of Labor. Thank you very much, Julie Sue. All think about when they're talking about the implementation of the federal infrastructure monies and programs. That was pretty wild for us. I will say that Angela's done a lot of advanced work with the National Governors Association and others, really helping to spread the good word about this. So I guess it's not a surprise. We met with the National Governors Association. Thank you, Angelo, for making that, opening that up for us. Great conversation with NGA. They support us. We're a model to them. We met with the transportation folks, Paige Shelvin, same. She pointed out models in New York and Oregon and Illinois and Maryland, where they're actually taking infrastructure money, transportation, and moving it to funds from the state Department of Transportation and allocating those dollars to workforce for grants for pre-apprenticeship, not unlike what we've done with SB1 money in California. So really interesting to be following up on those models. And we'll talk to you more about that later as that kind of unfolds. We met with the AFL-CIO and Amanda Ballantyne and Jane McDonald, my old friend, my young friend who I've known for a long time, I should put it that way. Thank you, John Brower, for introducing us and opening things up at the AFL-CIO. Curtis and I got to stand out on the balcony that overlooks the White House at the AFL-CIO next to the president's office. And they actually unlocked the door for us so we could walk outside. And you should have seen the Secret Service people on the roof of the White House hop to it and point their lasers at us. So we got off the balcony as quickly as we could. That was really fun and interesting. We also met with, as I said, Julie Sue, had a great conversation, and Brett Parton at USDOL. And again, same push. They're saying very consistently, there's money for workforce in these programs from the bipartisan infrastructure law, but also from CHIPS Act and others. And the intention is that we build funds in states to invest in programs that'll get workers into the jobs created by these federal investments. That's really clear. There's also a lot of clarity around what the White House intends to see. And this very much parallels what we've been pushing in California: quality jobs, equity, climate resilience. It's our stuff. And it's really exciting to see. And we're very set up for this, I think. And it's up to us to really pull it off. I think I should probably leave it there. I don't want to burn up too much time, Mr. Chair. Maybe there's some questions.
That's a great update, and thank you for making us proud and representing us there. Does anybody have any questions or comments for Mr. Rainey? Okay, thank you so much for that great update. We're going to now shift to our next topic, which is bylaws modification. I'm just going to share just some brief context. This is not an action item, just an informational update. But the U.S. Department of Labor recently conducted a review of our state board as well as EDD. And the Department of Labor found that for compliance with federal law, the board's bylaws are going to need to be modified, our state board's bylaws. There's 3 things specifically that were identified regarding our board composition and meetings. One is regarding term limits and how the term appointments will be staggered for all of us on the board. The second is the process to notify the governor of a member vacancy to ensure there's a prompt nominee. And lastly, the use of technology, web-based meetings to promote meeting participation. So to resolve these items, we will update our bylaws and submit them back to the Department of Labor. First, there needs to be clarification that term limits are actually required, or if we just need to acknowledge and address the need or what the terms are, going to be regarding in the bylaws. And so once we get that clarification, and depending on the answer, we will consult with the Secretary of Labor, Natalie Pelugia's office, as well as the governor's office, and then draft amendments to the bylaws to address the missing criteria. We would then present the amended bylaws to you, the executive committee, for review and approval, and then take the changes to the full board of directors for final adoption. John, do you have a question?
Hi, Angela. With the term limits, is that for just the state board, or is that also for the 45 local as well?
My understanding is this is purely about the state board, but Tim, do you know if this? Yeah, this is just about the state board.
Yeah, and just to say one more thing about that, John, is the federal law mentions term limits, but it doesn't say much more than that. So the interpretation by the Department of Labor is that there must be some mention, some dealing with term limits in state bylaws, but it's up to the governor to determine what that looks like.
Joseph?
Till death do us part. Is that the standard?
So far it's been that way.
Yeah, I just had the same question to John. Once you settle the list, will you provide similar guidelines to the local areas? Because I know they don't address term limits at all.
Yeah, it's a really good question. We'll have to follow up on that. We have to check and see what's required in the law. We could do some policy in California for sure, but we should follow up on that question.
And we'll need to know if, I'm assuming it would go into effect from that point moving forward also, but clarification on that as well, if it ends up being required. Any other questions or comments regarding bylaws modification? Clemente, are there any public comments related to this topic?
No public comments at this time.
Okay, thank you. We'll now shift to our initiative updates. And to brief you on the board's work, we're going to do a quick round. And I'm asking all of our team members to be brief, just 3 to 5 minutes each, please. And we'll begin with our policy, legislation, and research team led by Pradeep Kodamraju, Deputy Director.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will break up my remarks in 3 areas. I'll start with research. We finished the first round of evaluations and now moving to a second round of evaluations. The Cal Skills evaluation and the dashboard report, as well as the AJCC evaluation, is on our website. And we're in the final stages of having the other 2, which is the AB 1111 breaking barriers and the RPI 3.0 as well. The staff is developing concept papers, and we're working closely with UC Berkeley on job quality, and we should have something early next year. Moving to policy, we have extended or introduced the waiver applications because we had several requests from local boards that they wanted to relook at the waiver application. So we extended that particular interest for the youth waiver. Tim just talked about the bylaws and where our team is working on that as we speak. In the most recent legislation legislative session, there were 8 chaptered bills that affect CWDB, 4 in the Assembly, 4 in the Senate. They vary from improvements to data collection, looking at procurement standards, particularly with our high road work and also in the climate area. Some of them require work by the CWDB, and some of them are working in conjunction with other agencies as well as third-party entities. Moving to data management and administration, the CalSkills team is working on moving the whole CalSkills to the cloud, and we should have that sometime in the beginning of next year. And they're also working on data agreements with different agency partners, and we're moving and we're looking at the evaluation for CalSkills 2.0 and having conversations with Jennifer Sturdy who's the deputy for Deputy Secretary for Evaluation and Research. And we're looking at ways that we can enhance and advance the 2.0 evaluation for CalSkills. So that's the end of my remarks. If there are any questions, I'm willing to answer.
And if I could just add, Mr. Chair, briefly, on the waivers, and Pradeep and I are going to be talking about this. The U.S. Department of Labor, as you know, Julie Sue, very well, are pushing this concept of WIOA, yes, we can, which is their intent to provide a lot of permission so we can really maximize the flexibility of the WIOA dollars that are coming into the state. Their impression, more than an impression, their concern is that states are not using WIOA as flexibly as we can. So the WIOA Yes We Can campaign, which is really great. Secretary Palugi, and maybe Abby can say more about this, is also pushing a similar soon to be possibly initiative at the state level to kind of provide that that permission to do things that we maybe thought we couldn't do with WIOA dollars. That's all good news. On the research and evaluation, we are working very closely with the labor agency and Jen Sturdy. I hope you get a chance to meet her. She's really fantastic, helping us really tighten up around our evaluation work, but also across departments. And to take the evaluation work we've done and create products that help us understand what's working, what's not working, what the opportunities are in ways that could really impact program and policy. I think that's a baby. It's not in my house that you hear in the background. That's it for me.
Thank you, Pradeep and Tim. If Carol, if you could please mute, or if the co-host could please mute Carol's.
But that's such a delightful sound.
I know.
Yeah, that baby. What a mess. What an interruption. Jeez, mute her.
Okay, so we're gonna now go to our next update, which is program implementation team led by Joelle Ball.
Thank you very much. Again, I'll be brief. Accelerator 11 closed, and applications were received on Halloween, and those are currently being reviewed. The regional equity recovery partnership grants, those have been moved to contracting with EDD, the Business Operations Support Group contracting unit. Prison to Employment and Breaking Barriers are both ready to present recommendations for award to the labor agencies, so those are well on their way. The new reentry grant that was in our budget this in 22-23, it was $50 million focused on the CBOs. So CBOs are the eligible applicants, with local boards being required partners. That one we are going to postpone to spring, just so that we have time to really fully develop that, and in light of some other priorities that have emerged. And then the HRTP fund, the rolling fund, is currently closed for enhancements. We're planning to reopen that mid-January next year, and with a slightly different structure than what it has been. So looking forward to that. And then the HRCC fund will follow that with a little bit of a restructure. We have projects in HRCC that once they're funded, will spend down the HRCC fund. So that's a combination of general funds from last year, the SB1 dollars that we have had over the past 5 years up until last year, that we have a lot of it has gone out, but then there's some carryover that is currently in that HRCC fund. So all of that will be spent down in anticipation of the infrastructure dollars coming to California, that will go into HRCC projects. And then lastly, the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund projects that we have under the California Climate Investments, those end in March next year. So we are currently preparing for closeout and evaluation of those. So that is all for program, and happy to take any questions.
Mr. Chair, do you mind if I
Please.
Interrupt again? Sorry about that. I wonder if it's a good time, Curtis, if you could, since we talked about reentry and prison to employment briefly, can you add the Department of Labor work we're doing or will be doing?
Sure. No problem. Hey, exec board. So as part of, in 2018, the legislature passed and the governor signed a bill that required CDCR, our partner and our workforce corrections partner, to use MC3 in all of their CTE programs inside of CDCR's programs, inside programs in all 35 institutions. So there was a working group that was formed by CDCR. Tim and I and Dan at the time sat on that working group. Included State Building Construction Trades Council, included NAB2, included some local, some CBOs and some other partners in the field, including some local building trades councils. And we worked with CDCR to develop the implementation plan and standards, brought in NAB2 to help implement that program at CDCR. And so overall, it's pretty successful. I think at this point, it's been implemented in all 35 institutions across our state prison system. And CDCR did a great job partnering with NAB2 and training their teachers inside of the institutions to be certified in MC3. So that's just a quick background that leads to a federal grant from the U.S. Bureau of Prisons and the U.S. DOL that the state board applied to. We've been awarded, so we're just finalizing that with DOL now, where the state board and our partners here in California, who we've been talking to, will be working with the United States Bureau of Prisons and the U.S. Department of Labor at looking at developing similar programs inside federal prisons across the country. There's a desire there to implement MC3 programs inside the federal prisons. We have a number of we have a number of programs both through PIA and the Prison Industry Authority and through CDCR internally, who run their own training programs also, looking or who've developed those programs and implemented them inside our state prisons. So we'll be working with the U.S. Bureau of Prisons. We'll be advising on a national plan, again, for the federal prison system. So it's pretty exciting. We don't have a whole lot of details at this point, but we did get an award from the federal government. And I think it was, Tim mentioned it earlier in his update on kind of some of our programs being national models. And this is certainly one of those programs with our corrections partners. And so I think there's going to be a lot of work to be done at the federal level between systems, between labor and the U.S. Bureau of Prisons. But I think they're interested in our experience working here at the state level. And we're interested in providing them that support also.
Thank you, Curtis. Tim, was there anything else you wanted to add?
Oh, no, that's great.
Okay, any question? Thank you. Any questions or comments for Joelle, Curtis, or Tim on that? Okay, thank you so much for that update. And our last update is from our High Road Field Team, Sandra Hamame.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. I'll keep my comments brief as well. There's been a lot of activity around the Resilient Workforce Fund. I'll focus specifically on outreach. The field team continues to work with our current partners and new stakeholders interested in funding for high road projects. That's they're assisting in identifying, connecting partners for training opportunities and building out partnerships to build out the low carbon economy workforce, and also actively meeting with state and local partners, including more community-based organizations for the health and human services funding, really, that Abby spoke about earlier, that was allocated in the last budget. So a lot of activity there. The field team is also working in close coordination with the statewide partnership team at the Workforce Development Board to really align efforts across agencies. It's a lot of dot connecting that's happening right now. There's so much interest in funding. It's really trying to connect the dots and assist with connecting the dots around the funding that's available, and really bringing partners together that may not be aware of each other and the spaces that they're working in. So really providing those stronger connections to build out that network, and also to really build out deeper supportive services, a network of supportive services for participants in various programs. The team is also doing ongoing dot connecting with our current project portfolio. So that's still active. And now that my dog's starting to bark, I will go ahead and report there. It's not a baby, it's a dog, but that's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you, Sandra. Tim, did you want to add something?
Yeah. Well, not Sandra, great report. Thank you. But I wanted to correct something on the WIOA. It's not WIOA, yes, we can. I want to get this right. It's yes, WIOA can. It's a little more catchy.
Thank you for clarifying that. Any other comments or questions for Sandra? And Clemente, do we have any public comments related to initiative updates?
Not at this time.
Perfect. Okay. So in terms of other business, our next meeting of the full board is next week, November 16th at 10 a.m. And Clemente, is this going to be a hybrid meeting?
Yes.
Okay. And then regarding our 2023 schedule, we don't have dates yet, but as soon as we do, we'll definitely get them out to you guys so you can get them on your calendar. And regarding general public comments, do we have any received?
None received.
Okay. Then that concludes our meeting, and we will adjourn at 10:44 a.m. Hope everyone has a great day. Thank you so much.
Thank you all. Bye.
Thank you.